This story was shared with us by a man named M, who encountered something deeply unsettling during a brief stay at an old apartment building in Nonthaburi, Thailand. It is a story that begins not with death or violence, but with heartbreak. After a painful falling out with his girlfriend, M found himself searching for a new place to stay. On the morning of February 23rd, he began looking for a room and came across a 10-story apartment building. Modest, ordinary in appearance, located in a quiet neighborhood. The building had a simple layout: long corridors where rooms faced each other, a central walkway, and an elevator situated squarely in the middle. When M inquired about available rooms, he was told about one unit on the 4th floor, not managed by the building itself, but by an individual owner. He contacted the owner and arranged to meet later that day. That afternoon, the owner brought him to the unit. The moment the elevator doors slid open on the 4th floor, M turned left and stopped. The room was easy to spot, not only because it was located at the end of a T-shaped hallway, but because the door was green. Not just any green, a bold, jarring shade that clashed with the surrounding cream-colored doors. This green door was made of wrought iron, with a glass panel at the top, partially obscured by sacred Buddhist symbols and talismans plastered across its surface. At the time, M took note of the door's oddness, but brushed it off. He was distracted, troubled by personal problems. Details could wait. Inside, the smell of fresh paint struck him immediately. The walls were painted orange, and the green door motif continued. The bathroom door and another smaller door toward the back of the room were both painted the same unsettling green. But the room was large, freshly renovated, and surprisingly cheap, just 2,000 baht a month. It included a wardrobe and a dressing table. There was no air conditioner, but the price was hard to pass up. M paid the deposit and moved in that evening. The first night passed quietly. He was exhausted and fell asleep quickly. But the calm didn't last. On the evening of February 24th, M spent the day unpacking, drinking a few beers and listening to music. The room had 2 light sources, one near the entrance, the other near the back. As he sat by the back light, it began to flicker, soft at first, then rapidly, like Morse code he couldn't interpret. It continued for nearly 5 minutes. Feeling a prickle of discomfort, he turned off the back light and switched on the front, but it too began to flicker. He decided it was time to sleep. He turned off all the lights and lay down. Moments later, he heard a distinct sound, the bathroom door closing. The bottom of the door had a metal strip which made a scraping noise when dragged across the floor. A cold wave of dread passed through him. He reasoned, perhaps the wind, but then came another sound, running water. The sink in the bathroom had turned on by itself, and just as suddenly, the water stopped. M curled beneath his blanket, trying to disappear. But what happened next would etch itself into his memory. He felt them. Footsteps. Multiple footsteps. People, at least 3 or 4, walking through his room, passing beside him, circling him, silent yet unmistakable. He felt their presence even without sight. When he finally gathered the courage to lift the blanket, there was no one there. He prayed until exhaustion pulled him into sleep. The following morning, February 25th, M noticed his neighbors across the hall staring at him. Odd glances, not friendly, not hostile, just peculiar. He assumed they were just curious about the new tenant and ignored it. That night, he went to bed early, and that's when he dreamed. In his dream, he saw a woman wearing a convenience store uniform. She was surrounded by 2 transgender women, shouting, accusing her of stealing their boyfriend. The argument escalated into violence. The woman's head was repeatedly slammed against a wall. M watched, unable to intervene. The sound of each impact echoed in his mind. He awoke, shaken to his core. He couldn't understand why he had dreamt something so specific and violent. He tried to push it aside and went back to sleep. But nothing could prepare him for the night of February 26th. That night, M returned home around 2 a.m. He was sober, alert. After brushing his teeth, he lay down in the dark. Then he heard it. Crying. A woman sobbing outside his balcony. The sound was distant at first, low, broken, filled with sorrow. It drew closer, step by slow step.
M, heart racing, peered through the jalousie window slats and mosquito screen. Through the darkness, he saw a shadow. A woman's silhouette, slowly rising outside his window, her body trembling with grief. She walked toward the room, stopped, right at his door. Her shadow fell across the floor inside. And then the mosquito screen door flung open. The sound of rattling metal filled the room as someone violently yanked the main door's handle again and again, as if desperate to get in. M froze, covered himself completely, and whispered prayers under his breath. Silence fell, and then the bed shifted. He felt the presence move closer and then sit beside him. A moment later, in the clearest, most emotionless tone, a voice whispered directly into his ear. "Get out of this room. This room is mine." M did not move. He did not sleep. He waited for daylight. As soon as the sun rose, he called the owner and demanded to leave. But the owner refused to refund the deposit, citing the contract. M had only stayed 3.5 days. Desperate for answers, he turned to the building's cleaning lady. When asked whether anyone had died in the room, she quickly said no. But when M asked about the previous tenants, her response made his blood run cold. She said the room had recently been occupied by 2 transgender women and a convenience store employee, the same trio from M's dream. She remembered a heated argument among them one night, followed by the sight of the two carrying the woman out of the room, as if taking her to a hospital. After that, the two women moved out. She didn't know if the third ever came back. M had been the first tenant to occupy the room since then. The entire room had been repainted, renovated, repackaged. And that door, the green door, the one that stood out so starkly, was likely replaced. Perhaps the original had been broken down. Perhaps something more sinister had happened. Why green? Why orange walls? Why were all the doors inside painted the same jarring shade? No one knows. To this day, that unit remains an anomaly. Locals call it the Green Door Room, a space that seems to reject anyone who dares to stay. M moved out on February 27th. He now lives in a smaller, quieter apartment, still paying the same rent. He hasn't experienced anything supernatural since then, but he admits paranormal things tend to follow him. Still, nothing has ever matched the intensity of the 3 nights spent in that strange room with the green door.